In the early days of industrialization, organizations were designed like machines. Today, we understand them as complex, living networks. The classical management theorists believed that true efficiency came exclusively from a strict division of labor and an unbending hierarchy. They viewed the worker as a standard, predictable component. Later scholars recognized the fatal flaw in this logic. They completely rejected the concept of the strictly economic man, the assumption that an employee is perfectly rational and driven solely by maximizing their financial return. The modern perspective acknowledges that true operational efficiency is impossible unless management accounts for human cognitive limits and intrinsic psychological motivation. The evolution of public management theory operates as a chronological map, charting our changing understanding of human nature itself. This evolution begins with the German sociologist and political economist Max Weber. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Weber developed bureaucratic theory. He defined the ideal bureaucracy as the most efficient form of organization possible, built entirely on well-defined lines of authority and strict adherence to regulations. Weber categorized organizational power into three distinct types: traditional power, charismatic power, and bureaucratic or legal power. It was this legal power he admired most. In exchange for the security of job tenure, ethical public officials followed rules based strictly on rationality, objectivity, and consistency. In this ideal system, selection and promotion are based exclusively on technical qualifications. The organization is entirely formal, and relationships are based on positions, explicitly ignoring the personalities of the people holding them. That exact feature became its primary point of failure. The bureaucratic model relies on a rigidity and inflexibility that treats human workers as interchangeable parts. It entirely disregards human relations, failing to account for the informal social groups that play a massive role in day-to-day business operations. Because every action must follow predefined rules, the bureaucracy suffers unnecessary delays in decision-making when confronted with rapid environmental changes. Bureaucracy functions perfectly in a static, predictable environment, but when forced to navigate dynamic situations, its strict depersonalization causes the system to fracture. The next major progression in management theory came from American public administrator Herbert Simon. Simon contributed a vital theoretical separation, distinguishing decisions based upon objectively determined facts from those based on personal values. To do this, Simon directly attacked the baseline assumption held by his predecessors, the concept of the strictly economic man. This diagram illustrates what comprehensive rationality actually requires. An economic man maximizes returns by evaluating complete information. Acquiring complete information demands unlimited time, making it a mathematical impossibility in the real world. Instead, Simon introduced the concept of bounded rationality. He argued that human agents face two strict constraints: uncertainty about the future, and the actual costs of acquiring information in the present. Because these factors limit our ability to make fully rational decisions, humans are forced into a specific behavior. We satisfice. Satisficing means choosing an option that might not be optimal, but uses sufficient information to make a decision good enough to proceed. Simon proved that organizations cannot function like flawless mathematical machines because the human operators inside them are cognitively restricted from making perfect choices.
Around the same time, scholar Chester Barnard published The Economy of Incentives to explain another human variable. He sought to explain why individuals choose to participate in an organization in the first place. As this scale illustrates, Barnard framed organizations as systems of exchange. For lower-level employees to remain, the organization must provide a net pull of incentives. If an employee is asked to exchange their labor and loyalty, the return must feel sufficient, or they will leave. Barnard noted this balance is rarely achieved by money alone. He identified non-material incentives that are just as crucial: personal distinction, desirable physical conditions of work, ideal benefactions, and the sheer pride of workmanship. He placed far greater importance on persuasion and recognition than he did on economic inducements. Weber's structural authority was insufficient on its own. To keep an organization functioning, management had to actively balance the psychological trade-offs employees make every day. These realizations led to the humanist era of management, encapsulated by Douglas McGregor's framework, Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X represents the classic view. It begins with the assumption that humans possess an inherent aversion to work. If employees naturally dislike labor, management must rely on coercion, rigid control, and heavy-handed micromanagement to produce results. Theory Y provides the direct contrast. It starts from the assumption that engaging in work is as natural for humans as rest or play. Under Theory Y, employees will direct and control themselves. Humans naturally learn and seek responsibility. Therefore, the manager's role shifts from dictating tasks to cooperatively steering employees toward shared goals. We can observe Theory Y in action through the Japanese Z organization model, which acts as a complementary third element to McGregor's dichotomy. Z organizations operate on highly democratic and participatory decision-making. In this model, relatively low-level employees are entrusted with the freedom to be creative, allowing them to wander around the organization and develop unique company-specific roles. This immense freedom comes with a strict prerequisite. Employees achieve this autonomy only after explicitly agreeing on a central set of company objectives and ways of doing business. There are drawbacks to this approach. The professional distance Weber praised is eliminated. Depersonalization is impossible. Furthermore, it demands an exceptionally high level of self-discipline from a workforce, where many still prioritize financial return over organizational objectives. By removing strict structural rules, humanist models shift the burden of success directly onto the intrinsic culture, motivation, and discipline of the employees themselves. Over the span of a century, public management theory evolved from rigid, top-down pyramids to an understanding of bounded cognitive decision loops, and finally to fluid, participatory networks. Every organizational structure operates as a mirror of the assumptions we make about human nature. The most effective organizations do not attempt to suppress human psychology with bureaucratic machines. Instead, they design systems that recognize our limits and actively leverage our internal motivations. To master complex academic topics and prepare for your exams, reach out to the IELTS FOCUS. Specializing in targeted IELTS preparation, you can contact them directly on Zalo at 0847 705 973.